Hey, this is Thiago Lusvarghi, the podcast host from Born Unstoppable. And if you want to learn how to build a successful home-based business, you should be listening to the Home-Based Business Podcast with my good friend, Ryan Allen Bell.
Yo, what's up? Today I'm with my good friend Thiago. What's up, bro? How are you, man?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
Dude, phenomenal. Thiago from Canada. How's Canada, bro?
It is nice and warm, and I'm enjoying the weather right now.
Cool. What I love about podcasting and just social media in general is I could connect with people all over the world. So this is cool. I'm in SoCal, you're in Canada, and we're just having a one-on-one conversation. This is so dope.
Yeah, who would have thought technology is amazing?
Dude, serious. Okay, so let's get right into it. I really want to dive deep into your story. So for those that don't know, Thiago has a very unique story where he is pursuing a regular career path as well as entrepreneurship. And it's just very unique, like his perspective. And I really want to dive deep into his story and kind of see what we can learn and like what takeaways we can from perceiving a path like this. So I want to go back to maybe you in elementary school, middle school, high school. What was Thiago like back in the day?
Oh, man. Thiago back in the day was actually pretty thoughtful of the future. It's a podcast about business. And so back in elementary school, I was already thinking to the future, planning out what kind of career I wanted. And my parents, raised me with good discipline. I grew up with a strong faith background, which really has had a tremendous impact on my life. And so from a young age, I've been very focused, determined. I've known what I wanted and the steps I've needed to do to go through to get what I want. Yeah, that's what I would say. And just always enjoyed having fun, learning new skills, and trying to achieve the most out of life.
Wow, I love that. And do you think your parents helped you develop that mindset, like always looking to the future?
That's
Or
a
where
good
did
question.
it work? Yeah, where did it come from?
I think I would say yes. I mean, my parents, I have amazing parents, and the environment that you grow up in really shapes you, who you are and how you think. And I think I was just always listening to my dad's story, my mom's story, and being an immigrant. Like, I was born in Brazil and I moved to Canada. I got to listen to how they grew up and why they chose to come to Canada. And I think those kinds of stories really motivated me to think about my future and what I want. And it made me super grateful for the sacrifice that they made so that I can have an opportunity here in Canada. And so that's kind of, what pushed me. And I want to give back to them, when they're older and maybe want to retire. One of the reasons, I'm choosing to go down the medical path is to be able to help them down the future. So this desire to plan for the future was, in a way, a desire to give back to my family from a very young age.
Wow. I love that. That kind of reminds me of Gary Vee's story because he was an immigrant too. He came to America and it was like, yo, like I need to figure out how to have success,
Yeah.
So cool. So I do want to touch a bit on your faith background, man. Because that's something we have in common. I just want to know, like, how did that play a role in just believing in yourself, believing in the future, and just belief in general?
Growing up in a Christian family, you often take that for granted. You don't take your faith seriously because you're just always around it. And so I would say I accepted Christ when I was young and I went to church and all that. But it wasn't until I got to, let's say, even like past high school, I did 1 year of Bible college. And that's where I actually got to study God's word and really become passionate and understand it. And that was a very, a pivotal moment in my life where I went from just living off of my parents' faith to making it my own and
Mm,
really loving studying God's word and pray and just being more, intentional with my faith and how I interact with others. I'm not perfect. I still mess up. There's still days where, let's say, I don't want to study scripture. I don't want to pray. It doesn't get easier. I think, like anything, you have to build the habit and consistency,
hmm.
but it has been very foundational in multiple times in my life where, let's say, I've been struggling or have felt discouraged. My journey to medical school has been very tough, and I've always been turning to God for direction, questioning Him, either happy or angry. He's always there and He's always listening. And it comforts me to know that, we serve a God who loves us, wants the best for us, and, He has good timing. And for me so far, that His timing has been pretty perfect.
Yeah, man. I bring that up because a lot of people put their faith in God for leading them on their journey, because
Hmm.
people, they might be in a position where they don't even realize where they're at or where they're going, and that extra faith is pretty much all they need to just get to the next step. And then once you do get to the next step, then you're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is so perfect," you know?
Yeah.
Um so let's go into your medical story, man, and your journey there. So when were you inspired to go down the medical route?
That's a tough question because um, I don't remember a certain age, and I've had to think about this when I applied to medical school, to do the whole interview process. And
Hmm.
when I asked my parents, my dad just said, since you're like 4 or 5, whenever you went to the doctor, you're curious. You just really liked the idea of medicine or being in healthcare. And I think that's where it sparked. And then I have second degree cousins who are surgeons in Brazil, and having those kind of family ties is another kind of motivator. And so it started young, and I've always had medicine on my radar as number one and never looked to the side.
Hmm.
And so since that young age, it's kind of been like the one thing I've been working for.
Wow. Okay, there's a few things I want to point out. So you're young and it started with curiosity. And I
Hmm.
feel like curiosity plays such a big role for people becoming entrepreneurs. It's just like there's that some driving force that's pulling them. Is like, yo, like what is this area? I need to get involved in this area, or I need to figure this out or figure that out.
Yeah.
And that's just so cool to hear that curiosity was pretty much like your driving force when you were a kid.
Hmm.
Wow, that's awesome. And so, tunnel vision, man. You said, okay, since you're a kid, like that was like your thing that you're looking at is, and you weren't looking left, you weren't looking right. It's that's what I'm getting from this is you're just looking forward. Okay, like this is what I want to do. And why do you think you had so much tunnel vision pursuing that?
Um, it's funny you say that, and I'm translating because most people, when you think of medical doctors, you don't think entrepreneurship, even though depending which route you go, you are an entrepreneur as you set up your own clinic.
Yeah.
But I'll try to like bridge some principles of it. And yeah, what kept me from not having tunnel vision, what gave me tunnel vision, I think, was just this strong belief that the end goal was worth it.
Mm,
Um, Becoming a doctor was worth it. And if I can get to that point, I'm going to be able to give back to my parents. I'm going to be able to provide for my future family. Since elementary school, I've been thinking about my future wife and kids, and I don't have any, but I
hmm.
know that I'm going to, and I want to prepare myself to be able to provide for them the best as possible. And I think tying my goals to people that I love and will love was really the motivator, or was able to keep me motivated for so long. Um, and also, man, the journey to medical school requires so much perseverance. If I were to go through all the trials and hardships, I was not good at school. I never really enjoyed school. Was not good at math or science, and you need to pass those classes and do pretty well. And as a lot of your listeners will find out through entrepreneurship, or whatever they do in life, is that you got to do things that you hate sometimes to be able to get to that land of milk and honey. And
Mm.
so, there's many times where I had to take extra tutoring classes for math or science to get my grades up. I had to do some extracurriculars that I enjoy, but it's all that perseverance that really kicked in that allowed me to keep going and never give up.
Yeah, it's really important once we figure out what our end goal is. And what's interesting, the last 7 years of me being an entrepreneur, I could literally look at people and figure out why they are succeeding and why they aren't succeeding based off of how in touch they are with their end goal. And what I see is
Mm,
people that really don't know where they're going, the likelihood of them quitting is so high because they don't have a driving force. And then
yeah,
the people that know exactly where they want to go, exactly where their end goal is, they're willing to go through anyhow to get there. They're willing to persevere no matter how hard it is, no matter how long it takes, because they know exactly where they're going. So it sounds like that's pretty much how you got to where you are today, man. Is like you know exactly where you want to go, which is phenomenal, bro. It's like success leaves clues, and this is a huge clue that you're sharing with us right now.
yeah, and exactly what you said. The way I like to say it is, you need something in the future to pull you through. Like if you're just living in the present, it's easy to give up. But if you have that hope, that strong desire for something in the future, man, attached to that and allow that to keep pulling you through those tough times.
100%, man. Yeah, I always tell people, myself, is like, hey, like the future, if you develop like a future path or a future vision, just let that pull you through your life, like, and that's really what it is, man. So let's switch gears a little bit. All right, so you're pursuing this medical path.
Mhm.
When does your film come into play? Because I know you have a YouTube channel, and I know that's what you're doing also on the side. You're building your own brand around this. So when does this come about?
Right. So my desire for filming started in high school. Our high school has one of the best, or the high school I went to has one of the best video production classes at that time. I'm not sure if it still does, probably does. So I got exposed to broadcasting. I was like the anchor man, learned how to direct and, weather, sports, but also learn how to write short stories and short films and film them. So that's where it started. And it just became a hobby from there. I
Mhm.
bought a camera, love taking pictures and just capturing moments. To me, video is really all about capturing those moments, um, like with family. When you travel, you can save those and then edit them and just cherish them over and over. But it wasn't until a couple of years after high school where my parents bought a business. They own a KOA campground, where I was able to use my skills, my hobby skills, to help them generate income and scale their business. And after doing that, I was like, oh man, I can use a hobby that I love, make money, and help my parents grow. Like this is exactly like feeds into my one of my lifelong goals, which is like giving back to my parents, right?
Mhm.
And so that's how it really started.
Wow, that sounds like a dream come true. Like you're getting paid to do something that you love.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, 100%. So, I don't think people talk about this enough, but is doing something to serve the world and serve people. For you, it's being able to give back to your parents, but doing something that we love that is able to provide an income for us. Because for me, before I got into entrepreneurship, the path that I was on, I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't
Mm,
happy. I was just doing it just to make money, just to pay the bills, right? And then the secret sauce, like the special area to get to, is where you could do something that provides income and is also something that you love to do. And it sounds like that's what you discovered. Is there I kind of want to dive deep in this and like figuring out a hobby. Like, what do you think causes something to become a hobby where it's just like, okay, this is something that I love to do, where it doesn't feel like work?
What does it take? Oh, where it doesn't feel like work. Like, how do you discover it?
Yeah. So, like, what determines if something is a hobby and it's something that you could pursue, like, you could go down a path to actually potentially pursue for income versus pursuing something that doesn't make you happy?
Right. I think a hobby like that, the ideal hobby would just be something it starts with curiosity, like we touched on at
Mm,
the beginning. You're curious about it, you try it multiple times, and you still enjoy it. For me, filming has different variations. You can do family, videos or your own little thing, or videos for business. So if you do a variety of that and you still love it, and it pushes you to want to learn more. I think if you're just stagnant on one thing, no matter what the hobby is, then you're pretty one dimensional. You're not going to grow, and I guess pretty soon that's going to die out. But if you're motivated to keep learning, then that hobby is going to grow from just something you encountered and just loved to something that you're going to become an expert at. And
mm,
I think it's when you make that transition from like hobby to expert, not that that's fast, but you're
yeah.
transitioning there, that's where you can now start thinking how to make money from it.
Wow. I love that. So, for those of you listening, let's say you're in a position where you might not be fulfilled on the current path that you're on, and you know that you want to find fulfillment in your life. Start with curiosity. Think about what are things that make you curious, just how Thiago was talking about. What's something that makes you curious? And then go ahead and try it out. And if you end up loving it, then continue learning more. And as that cycle like proceeds, eventually that hobby turns you into an expert. And once you're there, because they say that to become an expert and to achieve mastery is 10,000 hours of practice in something, right? So if you're able to get to that expert level, like imagine doing something that you absolutely love, but your skill set is so high that now the marketplace pays you for it, right? And that's exactly what Thiago has figured out. And he's getting to this point where he's pursuing something he loves, which is film and video. And because he's loved it so much and his skill set is so high that now the marketplace is starting to pay him for it. Bro, what a dream come true for you, man.
Yes, it is. And, I hope it continues to grow. It's not easy with being in medical school, but it's a hobby that I love. And so to me, it's worth doing on the spare time.
100%, man. Okay, so what is your future vision? So you're pretty much going down two different paths. You're pursuing medical and you're doing video. So where do you see yourself, let's say 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? What's your future vision from this point forward?
Yeah. So 5 years down the road, fortunately for me, I can actually plan that out since everything's planned out for me. I'm still going to be probably finishing up residency, becoming a family medical doctor, or if I decide to specialize, I'll continue residency. But the end goal, or the long-term goal with this in terms of merging medicine and video, is that as a family doctor, you have a little bit more lenience in terms of how you practice. If you own your clinic, you can choose how many hours you work. And so I would lean towards part-time work, 3-4 days out of the week. And then the rest, I can focus on my video agency, creative media agency, if I can grow it up to even do like marketing. Because that way I get the best of both worlds. I get to continue to help people in a medical capacity, but then also help people in their business and help them scale their business. And to me, those go hand in hand. One is health, the other is business that
Mm,
makes money so you can maintain your health. So whether in the clinic or outside of the clinic, my goal is to continue giving back to the community, helping them while balancing those so that's enjoyable. And that's what I'm learning too, is, you know if I were, fishing, kind of an analogy, I got a lot of lines in the water,
Mhm.
waiting to see which fish bite or which line gets bit. So right now I have medical school. That one's a for sure thing. Once you're in medical school, you're gonna become a doctor unless you really choose to mess up. Like you
Mhm.
gotta want to
Yeah.
mess up to not become a doctor then, at least in Canada. And then I have my video agency. I have podcasting pretty soon, YouTube, and I think that's it for now. But those are all the things that I'm playing around with, when I have time to grow my personal brand and have fun. Man, it's so fun to be able to, I have a small YouTube channel. It's not even at 1,000 subscribers yet, but to see the comments of students, pre-meds who want to get in,
Mhm.
comments say, "Oh, thank you so much for everything that you do, for answering our questions or sharing your story." It just makes my day. It's like giving back to people, but all I'm giving them is my testimony, my story, what I did, and I want to continue to do that, and with the hopes of monetizing in the future.
I love that, man. It's interesting because yeah, you don't have over 1,000 subscribers on your YouTube, yet every single influencer that we follow on social media started at zero. And so
Yeah,
we all have to start somewhere. And it comes down to figuring out who our audience is and who we want to speak to. And that's pretty much what you're experiencing right now is like you have a small audience, yet you're having amazing conversations with people. Like you're impacting them, they're impacting you, and you're building like a community already, even though you're at the beginning still, man. And I love that because it's like for those listening, if you guys plan on growing your own audience with something, just don't worry if you don't even have 100 followers or 100 subscribers. Just start and just fall in love with the process and do something that you love. Incredible, man. um so you're doing YouTube, you have podcasting. Uh, this is a podcast. Those listening, you obviously this is podcast. I want to talk about why did you choose podcasting, Thiago? Like, what do you see podcasting going? What's the future of podcasting looking like for you?
oh man, I've always been one to learn new skills, and be super present in kind of media. I've loved video, you guys know that. I like being in front of the camera as much as behind. And podcasting is this relatively new platform. It's been around for years, but it's
Mm-hmm.
growing. And I felt like, man, this is a great opportunity to um, continue my personal brand, but also get to know people. Like I didn't just do it for me. That is a factor, but I've, growing up wanting to go to medical school, I've had to ask a lot of doctors questions about their journeys. I've always been a very inquisitive person, and to have that platform to be able to ask anyone to come on my show and ask them questions to get to know their life story is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't know, I'm going to be launching my podcast. Maybe we can talk about it later, but I've already interviewed 3 people, and one of them, I w- I wouldn't have imagined that I could, interview them long term, or like a long form medium. He's a doctor, and he has his own clinic and sells supplements. I reached out, said, "Hey, can I interview for him podcast?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." And we had a great conversation for an hour and a half. And so,
Wow.
to me, I'm looking forward to meeting successful people who have been through a lot, so I can learn from their stories and share it with the world. And it's fun. It's just fun getting to know people.
Yeah. For those listening, podcasting, you guys might even have your own podcasting, or you've probably thought about starting your own podcast. Podcasting is huge right now. You guys, voice. What's interesting is voice was huge back in the day with radio. Everyone was listening to the radio, and then all of a sudden TV came on board, then social media. But you know what's coming back, you guys? is voice. Voice is the future because it's such an easy platform for people to communicate on. And for those who are considering starting your own business or you have your own business, highly consider a podcast because like what Thiago said is you could get in front of people and really get to know people. And that's where the magic happens is just, relationships all day long. At the end of the day, if you're building any platform, whether you're going to be a doctor like Thiago or you're going to do video, like it's all about relationships and knowing people and
Yeah.
making sure you could build those connections with people.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about podcasting too is that, like any content you create, it's up pretty much forever. So it's something that people can continue listening to and gaining value from. And you can do anything while listening to a podcast. With a video, you have to be watching it. With a podcast, you could be driving, working out, doing things that you don't require too much thinking, and you can always be learning. And so that's the beautiful thing about it as well. It's so like versatile in the way you consume it.
100%, man. What's interesting is you have all these different platforms that you're using and you're pursuing medical. And I want to talk about like the power of part-time because that's essentially what's happening is like we don't have to do something 100%. We don't have to be full-time doctor. We don't have to be full-time video. What we could do is we could master the game of part-time. It's like, hey,
Mhm.
if you want to do this, you could do this. You want to do this, you could do this. And I think that's where the magic happens also is like, hey, like it just gives you more flexibility. And for those listening, let's say you're at a point where you have a full-time job and you're considering starting your own business, you don't have to just up and quit your job. You could literally just fit a part-time business into your spare time and just see where that goes. If you want to just supplement your income, you could totally do that. But if you want to get to a point where you want to replace your income, that's definitely an option as well. So I just wanted to point that out, Thiago, because it's just like it's powerful, man, and you pretty much just have more control of your life at that point.
Yeah, no, part-time is a tremendous way to start because it allows you to taste the different flavors that are out there without fully having to jump ship. Um, and if you can do it, do it. It's not going to be easy. If you have a job, especially if you already have a family, you have kids, you have a couple more things kind of more responsibilities that you need to take care of rather than pursue your dream
Mm-hmm.
because now you have to take care of family.
Yep.
And it is more challenging, but it's doable. If you think about it, if there's somebody who has been in a similar shoes that you're in, and they have done what you want to do, then it's possible.
Yep.
So, I hate to say it, but there's no excuses. And, we love excuses. I love excuses. But oftentimes when I find myself in a position where I just want to throw my arms up and say, I can't do this, this person's been on YouTube and he's killing it and I'm not. It's like, well, like you said, he started from zero. There's been many people in my shoes and they've succeeded. So there's no reason to quit. You just got to keep pushing. You got to find a solution. And to be a successful business owner, you have to be a solution finder. You
Mm.
have to solve problems. And it's never going to be easy. The easy things aren't worthwhile. It's those things that you have to fight for that really last a long time and they give back to you exponentially.
Wow. Yeah, one of my mentors, she has a quote. She says, "The most flexible person in any situation always wins." So as long as we're finding solutions in whatever we're pursuing, like life is just going to work its way out, and we'll find a way. So
Mm-hmm.
cool. So I want to go into your strengths, man. Let's go. Let's change gears a little bit. So we were talking earlier. You said, yeah, leadership is a strength, teaching is a strength, and film is a strength. So I really want to dive deep. And so the people listening, you guys could, learn from someone else's perspective when it comes to leadership, when it comes to teaching. So how did this come to be, Thiago? Like how did you start developing a passion or a strength for leadership and teaching?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting growing up being the second or the youngest. I have an older brother. I've always kind of been conditioned to look up to other people. I've always, been the youngest of my cousins. and I looked up to other people for leadership, and I always desired to be a leader. And it was kind of like this dissatisfaction. It was this dissatisfaction of not being a leader and like wanting to one that drove me to create and develop these skills of leadership. And so I would often find myself, let's say, in a fork in the road where it's like I had the option of, be a follower or take command and lead and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of figure things out. And after, time and time again of putting myself in these uncomfortable positions, I eventually developed leadership skills to the point where others started seeing that in me. They would say, wow, Thiago, you're a good leader. And I didn't even see that in myself, just because I've always kind of thought I wasn't a leader. I've always
Mm.
been wanting to become one. And so leadership and teaching came with this motivation to have those characteristics. And through practically applying and putting myself in positions of leadership. And I don't know what the age range for your listeners are, but I know that, if you're anywhere above 20, this feeling that once you get to a position that you thought you would know everything, you understand that you know nothing and that you got to make it up. And so I put myself in leadership positions for like Bible studies. I started leading Bible studies, and I thought, I'm going to know stuff. It's going to be easy to teach or lead a Bible study, but it's not. There's nobody there holding your hand, showing you the way. You just have to develop these skills along the way. And that's what I find fascinating about life, is that when you look through the lens of social media, you see people in positions and you assume that they know what they're doing, but they're making it up. And
Mm.
so for me, when I was in leadership positions, I was kind of making it up, with skills that I have to put me in that position. But I was learning as I was teaching. And being a Bible study leader or any other position, you kind of naturally have to cultivate this teaching skill as well. And so I came up with a little acronym. As a leader and teacher, you have to be good at condensing information. You have to cultivate an environment where the students or whoever's around can absorb that information and learn. And you have to be able to communicate it effectively. And so you got to keep it simple and allow people to listen to it and have practical advice that they can apply in their lives.
Wow, bro. Leadership is one of my passions as well. And I got so much value just from hearing your perspective of leadership too. And I have some pretty big takeaways that I want to share with you guys listening very quick. So, number one, going back, you had a older brother that you're always looking up to, and so you're looking up to different people in your life. And one of the key things that help someone develop into a great leader is they must first be a great follower. And so that's what
Mm.
Thiago was able to do. Is he was a great follower. He's looking up to his brother, and because of that, he was like, hey, that's something that I want to eventually get to, which is the second point I want to talk about. Is he had a void where he was like, hey, I'm not this leader yet. This is something I want to pursue. And so what I encourage you guys to do is figure out in your life, what are your weaknesses right now? Like, what are your voids in your life? Because your biggest void, your biggest weakness may someday become your number one strength. And you could use Thiago's story as an example. As he got to a point where he was pursuing leadership, but he got to a point where now people are like, oh my gosh, you're a leader. And he didn't even see that in himself yet. And he's been pursuing it for so long that all of a sudden one day he just became a leader. And the last point I want to talk about is, if you're going to lead people, the first person you must lead is yourself. And that's exactly what Thiago was talking about, is he's just taking initiative in so many different areas of his life and just figuring it out. And it's that quote that you said, a wise person knows that they don't know anything, but you're always learning. And when you put yourself in that position, if you're always learning, you're able to teach people. And I love what you said: condense, cultivate, communicate. That is just like so perfect, and it makes complete sense. And that's kind of like, it sounds like that's a great teaching formula. Did you come up with that yourself, or did you hear that from someone? Or
I came up with that myself. I was in the car, and that was after you asked me to be on the podcast, and I was thinking, oh man, what strength do I have? And
yeah.
I created that quick those 3 C's on the spot, and easy to remember and very practical. And I just want to say, man, that takeaway is massive. Like, I didn't even put that together, and how my weakness became my strength. And I just want to give a shout out to my dad. I don't know if he's going to listen. I'll share this with him, but
Yeah.
he was always a very powerful, very present leader that I looked up in my life growing up. We have an amazing relationship, and he's always inspired me to do my best and to seek the best positions possible. If it's uncomfortable, it's because it's worth it. If it's hard, it's because you got to earn it and it's worth it. And so having mentors and role models like that in my life, if I kid you not, if it were not for my dad, I probably would have given up on medicine a while ago. I've had countless talks with my parents, especially my dad, about not giving up, about looking to the future, staying strong, and just persevering and enduring. So, yeah, it's amazing that if you stick with something, if you don't give up, if you lead yourself, you have to be aware of your weaknesses and be able to surround yourself with people that can support you. You can go extremely far.
Bro, I love that you just gave your dad a shout out. And it's so important. Think about it, you guys. Like, you are here because of your parents, and the person that you are today is because of your parents. They helped develop into the person that you've become. And even, let's say, we could start from like a negative standpoint. Let's say there's characteristic traits from your parents that you don't want. You're like, okay, like, I'm going to become someone different. You literally have developed a strength because of your parents in that sense. And even from a positive standpoint as well, if your parents have certain characteristics that you love, and you're thriving in your life because of that. And that goes into mentorship. I think the first mentors all of us have of our parents, from day one.
Yeah.
We're learning from them 24/7. And what is a mentor? A mentor is essentially someone who has the results that we want and has been where we are right now. And why not start with our parents? So for those listening, I encourage you guys, just take a second and think about your parents. Maybe reach out to them today and just let them know that you care, and just thank them for what they've been able to help you achieve so far in your life.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in there and say, for those of you who maybe don't have such loving parents that you can look up to, maybe had a rough upbringing, one, I just wanted to say, like, congrats to you for uh, pulling through, to keep working and never giving up. I just want to encourage you and give your parents some grace. I'm sure you feel that you're figuring out life as you're living, and they're figuring it out as well. Not everybody's at the same wavelength in terms of thinking and love and compassion. And so if you have that loving spirit inside of you, send a text to them, telling them that you love them. If they reply, good. If not, then hey, you did your part. And it's important to just extend that grace and be understanding. I personally, I can't imagine that kind of pain, but I know a lot of friends that have been in that spot. I've heard stories, and I don't want anybody to feel any type of anger towards those closest to them. So if you don't have a loving father or mother role model or figure in your life, then think about that the closest friend, uncle, whoever it is, know that you are loved and somebody did influence you. And it's so important to give back to them. Even just compliments take people, a world apart. You can't imagine how much a compliment will help somebody in their day. They
Mhm.
could be down and out, and your compliment of saying, "Hey, thinking about you. Thank you so much for everything you've done in my life," that will lift their spirits like no other thing.
Wow. So powerful. That's so crazy. We just got off on this crazy tangent and I wasn't prepared to like for us to talk about like our parents, but think about it, at the end of the day, like that really, really matters. So
Mhm.
incredible, man. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. So since this is the home-based business podcast, I have a belief, and my belief that the only way to achieve true freedom is to future-proof our income by creating a plan to quit our jobs and start a home-based business. Now, we know Thiago and his path, and I want to hear his perspective on the same question. So, you guys listening, you guys could not only just, listen to my own perspectives, but that's the reason I do this is so you could hear from other people who are experiencing success and hear from their perspective. So, Thiago, do you believe that the only way to achieve true freedom is to create a plan to quit your job and start a home based business, and why?
And that is a great question. And the only reason I have to disagree, unfortunately, for those of you that are upset, is for that one word only. It's pretty polarizing.
Hmm.
And I'm looking out for those words whenever I write tests because they try to get you. So
Yep.
I would say that I believe you can achieve true freedom from starting a home based business, and that it is one way of many ways to do it. I think it really depends on where you're at, like what kind of job you have, what kind of life you want to live. And I think
Mm.
having a home based business is an amazing option. If you can do it, I would say do it. If you have the discipline to work from home, manage your schedule, and if you have a good product or whatever you're involved with selling, I think it's a really amazing way to stay at home, be connected with your wife or husband, connected with the kids, and spend time with family and friends. Um, but it's not the only way, because I don't want people to feel like, oh, if I don't have one, I'm not going to be happy or succeed. Because there's many people out there that don't work from home, yet they can still live a happy, comfortable life, or even beyond more than that too. And so to approach that question, if you're at that stage, should I go home based or not? One, I would say definitely think about it, but it's important to define what kind of freedom you want to establish
Hmm.
and what are the necessary steps to get there. Is it a selfish pursuit or is it selfless? You Without an end goal and without the steps to get there, then you're likely to give up and not get there. So um, I commend you guys that are really thinking deep and listening to the advice Ryan is giving and that his guests are giving in terms of starting a home-based business. I would definitely uh, uh, do that if I could. And I kind of can, depending on my video business, I can still work from home. I don't need an office. As a doctor, there's still an option to do telemedicine. I think there's a time and place for all these things, and you just have to figure out if it fits the lifestyle you want to live.
Bro, that was the most perfect answer. And that's why I love that question, is because everyone has a unique perspective. And my biggest takeaway from what you just shared is figure out what freedom looks like to you.
Mhm.
If like picture your life 5 years down the road, what do you see like freedom looking like for you? And if whatever your vision is for freedom, just connect the dots to make the right choices to get there. And at the end of the day, I think that's really what matters, is like, what is freedom to you, and go after that.
Yeah.
Wow. Thiago, man, your story is incredible, and the value that you've shared with us so far is incredible. So, um, before we call it, what is the best advice that you could share with us for people? So the people that are listening, they're in a position where either they haven't started a home-based business and they're really considering starting one, or they already have a home-based business and they're just looking to level up. So what is the best advice you could give to everyone from your experience pursuing the paths that you've experienced so far in your life?
Ooh, that is such a good question. And I have 5 points, 5 tips that I want to give to people. And then if you want to pick one, we can dissect and talk about more. But the first one is define your why. Sounds
Mm,
cliche, but you got to get your why down, because it's going to help you. It's going to help drive you towards your goals and keep you motivated even during difficult times. And so there's 2 types of whys. You have your internal and your external. That internal why is like a personal pain point. For me, it was, I want to provide for my parents in the future. I want to give back. It was this pain point that I needed to find a solution for. And then my external is, I want to have, a good financial freedom. I want to live a relatively comfortable life or be able to do the things that I do. That's a little bit more selfish, a little bit more for me. And so I would say get those 2 whys down to give you direction as to where you're going to sail towards. Then I highly encourage you guys to do some form of journaling where you can set out what you have to do for the day and then check them off. It's your own way of keeping yourself accountable. I noticed that when I started planning my days out the day before or even the morning of, I was so much more productive. And if you're going to run a home-based business, you're the only person that's going to keep you accountable, unless you hire a mentor and pay them to keep you accountable, right? And so you have to develop these productivity skills, these high performance skills, to keep pushing past obstacles, pushing past those mundane tasks that are so easily distractible to you. And you need systems in place to help you do that. So adding to that, the third advice would be, get your morning routine dialed in. We are a creature of habit. We love routine. And it's so important that you have a predictable way of waking up so that your body isn't constantly trying to make decisions and guessing. I would say figure out what your magic time is. For me, my brain functions the most in the morning. So the first thing I do is I'll do my Bible study, the morning devos, pray, and then get right into working or studying. For me, that's typically doing a ton of flashcards. The fourth one is get your evening routine dialed in as well. You need a way to wind down from a long day, to get your mind off of work and onto family or kids, whatever stage of life you're in, because our brain just kind of holds in everything that happened throughout the day. And if you don't process that, you're going to carry that in the night and you're not going to sleep well. And then fifth is find a mentor, free or paid. If you can get one for free, that's amazing. That is a relationship you want to cultivate. At one point, depending how much you want to grow, you're going to have to pay a mentor. So I noticed that the mentors in my life have been very pivotal in my growing.
wow. So just to review, this is what I got from it. Define your why, journal, master a morning routine, master an evening routine, and find a mentor. That is so perfect. And what's interesting is journaling. That's something I've been doing for years. And I got that from Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn, he talks about, he's like, there's 2 things that we leave behind for our family. Number 1 is photo albums, and number 2 are our journals, right? And so
Sure.
that's so key. And then I learned about mastering my morning routine and evening routine from Darren Hardy. He actually studied underneath Jim Rohn also, but he just talks about If you can master those bookends, he calls it the morning bookend and the evening bookend. That's really the only opportunity that we have complete control of in our day, because once our day
Hmm.
starts, who knows what's going to come up? You know, we're working our jobs, working our businesses. And then last is find a mentor. And I believe that's why this podcast is so important, because you're learning from so many different people that have results that you desire, and just applying bits and pieces over the course of your life will transform your life. Wow. Top 5 things. I love that, bro. Those are phenomenal, man. Cool. All right. So this is what I want to leave the audience off with. I'm a huge quote guy.
Hmm.
I've been so much into quotes for years, because I believe the right quote at the perfect time can make such a huge impact in someone's life. So, what is one of your favorite quotes, or a quote that has come up recently that's really impacted your life that you want to leave with us today?
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Wow.
This quote is actually a pretty recent one, but resonated with me a lot because I noticed that if I slack off in how I study, if I slack off in the gym, those are interrelated.
Hmm.
Everything is connected in life. And so how you treat anybody, if you treat your mom with disrespect, if you treat your brother or your friends, you're going to treat your boss with disrespect, or employees, or your customers. And so that quote really goes to show you that you have to do everything with excellence. You have to respect everything that you do and respect yourself. Like, if you don't put in hard work and do things with excellence, then you're not respecting the gift that God has given you, which is the ability to even do that in the first place. And it's so easy to forget and feel lazy and just feel like, you know what, I'm just going to do this and move on with my day. Um, you can do that, but that's going to backfire. And so, depending at what level you want to live your life, at what level of success that you want, you're going to have to pull in the reins on yourself, on your ego, on your pride, whatever it is, and dial yourself in to focus at the task at hand and do them with the best quality that you can. And so that's why I love that quote.
That's one of those quotes that a lot of us, or even I would probably expect mostly everyone here, has heard that quote, and
Yeah.
we take it for granted. But it's one of those quotes where you really have to take a step back and ask yourself, like, am I living up to what this quote is saying? Because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, most of us probably aren't. And it has to be something that we're continuously checking on every single day. And that's how we create mastery in our lives
Yeah.
over time.
And I just want to put it, make it clear. If there's anybody listening to this podcast and thinks like Thiago has it together, that's his favorite quote. So he does everything with excellence, or getting to medical school was a breeze. It's no, no, no. I'm human just like you. I mess up. There are days where I don't feel like doing something, and I have to push through, or I just have to kind of correct my mistakes. And I want you to feel comfortable knowing that you're human. The people you look up to are human. They have bad hair days as well. And you just got to keep moving forward. You got to, and that's why like journaling is helpful too. Is if you mess up, you put that down your journal and you think of how you can improve the next day. So reflecting on your experiences in these quotes, goes a long way.
I think that's really big that you brought that up, because I'm human too. And especially on the social media, the online world, is we could put people up on such high pedestals because of what they show on their social media. But just know, every single person that you follow on social media, every single mentor that you have is just like you, right? At the end of the day, we're all the same. we're just on different paths. We're learning different things, and we're all in different chapters of our life too. Like, never compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. I think that's the biggest thing. And if you're going to compare your life to anything, compare your life to the person that you were yesterday, right? Today be better than you were yesterday, and then tomorrow be better than you are today. And I think if you focus on that over time, you're going to get to a point where you're experiencing true fulfillment, true freedom, true success in your life. And eventually you get to a point where you could give back to other people. And I think that's where ultimately everyone wants to get, is they want to get to a point where, you know, they're earning income to provide for themselves, their family, and they can focus on what they love, whether that's hanging out with their family, doing what they love, and giving back to the world and giving back to people. Incredible. All right, Thiago, man, your story was absolutely incredible. So for those of you who want to get in touch with Thiago, what is the best way that people can get in touch with you?
I'll give you a couple. The best one I would say Instagram. So that's just at Thiago Lusvarghi. I'm very responsive there. The second would be go to my website. If you're a business owner and you're interested in growing and scaling your business through video, then feel free to fill out a form, watch my video, contact me. And even if you would just want to kind of like a discovery meeting, learn a little bit, you know, I'm down to talk and help you out. And then YouTube, again, my name. Everything about me, it's just my name. And then the fourth one, it's coming up, is the podcast, which I have to get you on as well so people can learn more about your story. And the podcast name is Born Unstoppable.
Amazing. And for those who are looking up Thiago's information, how do you spell your first and last name, man, so everyone knows?
All right, it's Thiago. So that's Thiago. And my last name is Lusvarghi, Lusvarghi.
Cool. Thiago, thanks for coming out today, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciated this experience, and best of luck to everybody listening here. Go and build your home business and find success. God bless.